Hey, this is Dave from MetalEpidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review.
Disruptor!
What is up, guys? Dave here from Metal Epidemic, back with another album review. And for this review, Duncan, Kyle and I have been checking out the new album from industrial metal veterans Fear Factory. The band's new album, Aggression Continuum, will be released on June 18th via Nuclear Blast Records. So, gentlemen, it's been a minute since Fear Factory released a new album. Genexus was released in 2015, believe it or not. But the band have been through their ups and downs over the last few years, which has been well documented, so I'm not going to get into detail on that on this review. But this album, however, will likely be the last to feature vocalist Burton C. Bell, who has been with the band since its inception in 1989, when they were actually known as Ulceration, and then changed their name to Fear Factory before the release of Solo A New Machine in 92. So I suppose the future of this band has been a bit of a hot topic. Many questions being asked about this new album and how it was going to sound. And one of the main reasons for that is because it was first recorded back in 2017, but then everything was obviously put on hold until Dino could regain the trademark and then move forward with the album's release. But since then, there have been some changes to the album. The drums were originally programmed, but then they decided to have Mike Heller go in and record live drums to add a bit more of a kind of drummer feel to the release. They also retracked guitars and bass to go with the new drum tracks. They added in some more keys to the album, which came from various kind of contributors on that front. They also got Andy Sneap back in to produce it, which wasn't the original plan, but since Andy produced Genexus, they thought it would be kind of beneficial for him to come in and do this one as well. Dino has said in interviews that he feels like this is a bit of a kind of sequel to Genexus, so I suppose it made sense to keep the kind of same producer. Okay, anyway, I'm a fan of these guys. Like I have been for many years. If you've listened to the podcast and stuff, I've spoken about this band many a time. Not every single Fear Factory album has hit the mark for me, but I like to think that they have more kind of good albums than kind of bad or mediocre albums. The funny thing was that I wasn't overly hyped about this album, if I'm honest. At this point they'd released 2 singles that were okay. I preferred the second single, Fuel Injected Suicide Machine, out of the 2 that they released. But even then I still wasn't like overly excited about this, so maybe I went into this with kind of low expectations, I don't know, but regardless of that, this kind of hit me harder than I anticipated. On one listen to this release, I was completely sold. This wasn't one of those albums that, you know, I needed more time with, or, you know, was going to have to grow on me. When the album finished, I put it right back on again. And for the most part, I think this is very much a Fear Factory album. But let me tell you why I think it can appeal to me so much. Firstly, there are more than a few of these tracks reminded me of late 90s era Fear Factory. That kind of demanufacture and obsolete era of the band. And well, I love Demanufacture. It has been said many a time, it's one of my favourite albums. And this, especially in the kind of vocal melodies, some of the chords Dino uses, definitely reminded me of that album. But then there are a few riffs in there that totally take you back to that more kind of modern, kind of cutting edge sound of Obsolete as well. Tracks like Disruptor or Collapse, they feel kind of less clinical, have a bit more kind of more flexibility to them, I suppose, in their sound, especially on a kind of the riffs front. So from a kind of nostalgia point of view, it ticked a lot of boxes for me. There's a lot of vintage Fear Factory here, but on the flip side of that, there's some new twists on this as well. things that are quite subtle but make a huge difference to the kind of emotional feel of the album. And to be honest, it's mainly in the keys and the synths on this, to be honest. So if this was something they did add in at a kind of later date, then, you know, job well done, because the keys and the synth work on this is fantastic. And I mean, like, the difference between a good album and a great album, that's how much I feel like they've had an impact on this release. Sometimes it's something symphonic or a little more industrial, like on Recode, or they go for something a bit more kind of string based, like on Purity. And on that track especially, it really elevates the track to the next level. Kind of Burton's vocals alongside the strings are just perfectly matched. I thought they were absolutely brilliant. And whilst I'm on the kind of subject of Burton's vocal, you know, say what you want about him live. I know there's been, you know, things said about his live performance, but on CD, like on this, he sounds kind of flawless, to be honest. And he sounds like a perfect fit. I mean, I know it's unlikely he's going to be with the band now after this album, but he has such a distinctive sound. I think it's going to be really difficult to replace that. I think whoever they do get to take over, they've got some kind of big shoes to fill. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it needs to be someone that will bring something unique to the table, and not a sound alike, because I think otherwise people are just going to say, well, kind of Burton did it better type thing. But as far as this album is concerned, I actually think it's one of Burton's best vocal performances. And I think Andy Sneap has done a great job of the production. I think it doesn't sound identical to Genexus, but it sounds very slick. It's very clean sounding. It's punchy when it needs to be, and it's got that kind of grandeur when those big kind of melodic parts sweep in. I know drum wise, Dino said that they got Mike in to record live, and you know, I've analysed this album. Being a drummer, I've kind of like went through it like with a fine tooth comb. I think there definitely is a level of fluidity to the playing. I don't think it sounds too rigid or too digitally enhanced that it sounds like a drum machine. I think there is an element of a human feel to the drum sound. I think they've had albums in the past where it sounds completely programmed, but I felt this one had a kind of blend of both. There were moments on this where I felt like, yeah, that sounds like a drummer's playing this, and there were other moments I thought, wow, that is super tight. You know, it could be enhanced a little, but I loved how crystal clear the drum sound was. I think right down to the little kind of bell accents on some of the riffs and stuff. I thought that was really nice. So in terms of the production, I really enjoyed it. And I think in general, this album has a great balance. I think it's one of the main kind of selling points for me, from the tempos and the rhythms to the heaviness and the melody and the keys. It didn't feel lopsided in any way. I think it's got a great variety right across the board, and I like it even more every time I hear it. They've done 10 albums now. I'd say this is in the top 4 for me, to be honest. I instantly liked it, and that doesn't always happen for me with Fear Factory albums. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for me to fully connect with it, but I really enjoyed this first listen, and maybe it's because I wasn't expecting it. I thought the singles weren't really lighting me on fire, and I had my kind of expectations kind of low. I don't know, but the first listen, I was completely sold. Duncan, what did you make of this one?
Well, unlike you, I couldn't have given less of a fuck about this album at all. Like, genuinely. Like, this has been on my fucking Facebook feed for the last, 6 months? And then that's just in talks of the album getting remixed to come out. And for the last 3 years, I feel like we've all been living the fucking fallout of this band. And it to the point where I am a bit not a snob, but I'm a bit of a purist when it comes to bands, right? And if your vocalist is leaving and you're fighting for the rights of all the, I mean, Dino's the only guy left standing now, right? And he is by law now, he is Fear Factory. I know a lot of people are like, well, Dino is Fear Factory because his guitar work. I don't know if I go there. To me, Fear Factory. I didn't like shed a tear when like Raymond left. I didn't shed a tear when Christian was fucking ousted, because it was still Dino and Barton, and Dino and Barton are Fear Factory. That's like the guitar work, but specifically the vocal work is what is Fear Factory. You're right. Like Burton C. Bell adds an element of, it's like movie soundtrack with the way his melodies come in. It's huge and it's grand and it makes a statement. And yes, I've never seen them live, and all I've ever heard is he's the worst guy live. And maybe he is, and that's a shame. But I agree with you. I've yet to hear him on an album and not think, well, even the boring fucking shit he was doing with Ascension of the Watchers, the guy can sing, right? He can sing. He's got a tone that I like, and he hits certain notes and the cadence, and he's great on this album. He's absolutely brilliant on this album. You mentioned that it reminded you of Demanufacture and Obsolete, whereas Demanufacture is your favourite Fear Factory album, Obsolete is my favourite Fear Factory album. And there's a whole lot of Obsolete in this, specifically in the way that they use the orchestration and the synth work, specifically in the background. There was waves of this that remind, even the vocal melodies, the waves of this reminded me of Obsolete. I'm going to try and stick with the good stuff, then I'm going to pin to the bad stuff. So I like that. I still like Dino's guitar work for the most part. I still like it. I like that he's not just a guy that does triple picking. He's got a very distinctive guitar sound with the way he writes his melodic chords, that many bands have emulated. In fact, loads of bands have emulated. But it still sounds kind of cool when it's coming from him. I like that. Very much like yourself at the end of the first listen, I was like, well, that sounds a lot like Obsolete, so that kind of makes me happy. This album hasn't gone up, though, in subsequent listens. It's actually dropped a little bit, which is weird, because Fear Factory usually does the other way for me. It usually takes me a good couple of listens to get through a Fear Factory like album to the point where I like it. And I'll be honest, like the last two Fear Factory albums, I couldn't have given a tiny rat's ass about. I thought they were trying to essentially manufacture a heavier sound, which to me has never been the point. Like the point of Fear Factory is to take the machine and give it a human soul and cram those together, and that's what you get. It's big melodies, it's big choruses, and it's technical playing in the background, which is machine tight. And that's, I think the last two releases didn't have that human soul. They sounded like they could have just all been done by machines. It didn't have the same punch, and on this one it felt like they grabbed it, which is part of the frustration of the listen, is that this, like you say, for all intents and purposes, is the last Burton C. Bell album, and I think he's done one of his best performances, and I don't know if I want to hear a different vocalist in Fear Factory at all, because then it's just the Dino Kazar show, and he's got about another 3 bands which are just the Dino Kazar show. You can listen to the Bugeria or whatever that one was with that. What was the name of that band? Which was like Fear Factory. It sounded just like Fear Factory, but more metalcore.
Divine Heresy.
Yeah, Divine Heresy. So these are all Dino side projects, right? So he's done all that stuff. So we've lost the element that to me made them really interesting, and this is the last album he's on. I'm not intelligent enough to see whether or not a human being played much on this, but I know there's a whole lot of computer. Those tom sounds are computer as fuck. I mean, I have those tom sounds on an old Casio. Like genuinely are the most synthetic sounding toms I have ever heard. And like as soon as they kicked in, I was like, oh. And then I joked in our chat like that. I was like, see if Kyle gives this band a free fucking pass for their drum sound after the last 6 months I've had to listen to of bands that egregiously program their drums within an inch of their life, I will be pissed the fuck off, right? Because there are moments in it. I'll agree with you. The cymbal work sounds like, specifically stuff in the bells, sounds like someone's playing that. It didn't sound like that was a computer, because you usually can tell on computer symbol sounds and stuff like that. The pedal work, I'm not good enough to say whether or not that's sounds a bit too right, if you know what I mean. But plus I don't know who the drummer is. Maybe that's his background. So, but to me the drum stuff at moments was really interesting. In other parts it was just the most boring Fear Factory stuff, and that's where the diminishing returns have come for me. Like, coming back to it, those are the bits that don't inspire me at all. It's still very much this is a Dino Kazar's Burton C. Bell show, and that's the stuff I really like. And his melodies are great, and the synth works great. So yeah, I would probably agree with you. I would probably say this is in the top 4 albums by Fear Factory. But I can tell you, Fear Factory's albums 5 through 10 for me don't score particularly high. So I don't know what that says. I don't know. I'm kind of I'm at odds with myself on this one. Like I say, I feel like I've been living this. I genuinely, and I don't want to throw accusations and slander, I genuinely don't know what this sounded like before all the Kickstarter money that went into it sounded like. All I know is a whole lot of people out there saying that the money didn't go towards this. No studio footage posted that I'm aware of. No retracking footage posted that I'm aware of. So there's no way to tell that he's done anything new on this. And I also don't think it sounds anything like the previous album. So that lets get Andy in to do stuff. It doesn't hold water for me. This actually sounds like a marked departure from the previous release, and not a kind of sexy sequel follow-up. Doesn't sound like that at all. It sounds like them trying to fit into an older, more interesting, I would argue, Fear Factory sound. So I don't know. This is the shit that drives me up the wall. The story behind the album, to me, is more pernicious and interesting than the album at the end of the day. Like, all the stuff that's went on in the last 4 years that we're all aware of because it's been fucking everywhere, is the stuff that sours me when I come to listen to this album. Because I come in here thinking, why should Fear Factory be Dino Kazar's outlet? Because he wrote the guitar work on it? I mean, like, he didn't write any of the melodies for the vocals. That was all Burton C. Bell, and he doesn't play drums to the best of my knowledge, so that shit drives me up the fuck. Just call yourself something else. Like, see the next album, just call yourself Divine Heresy 2. Like, or something. But I personally, if this is their last album, I'm fine with that. I do not want to hear another Fear Factory album, which is just Dino Kazar's and guys that weren't in the band. I could not give less of a fuck about that. So yeah, my score is going to be interesting when I get to the end of this, because I do think there's great songs on here. But like, for me, it's diminished on listens. So I've had this a couple of weeks, and you know, by listen number 4, I was like after listen 1, this was maybe top 3 Fear Factory albums. It's now sitting maybe top 4, maybe top 5 for me after subsequent listens. Yeah, like I say, this should be the last Fear Factory album, and then change it to whatever you want after that. Don't trade off the name, because it's just you, and I don't know where royalties go and where rights go and all the rest, but that, to me, there's a lot of blood and sweat and tears from other members that created that brand, and if you're just going to trade off on it from now on, that's snidey as fuck. So there you go. And Dino, the word snidey in Scotland means not very nice and devious. So yeah, there we go. I don't know. I fucking didn't want to do this album specifically because of that reason, because of all the fucking baggage that comes with it. It just annoys me. I would much rather, like, they did everything behind closed doors we didn't know anything about, and then the album came out. It is, however, 100 times better than Ascension of the Watchers. So Burton, like, go and fix yourself, please. That fucking album is awful. Right, there we go. I'll give it to Kyle, who is about to slag off the drums or fucking else.
Prepare to be pissed off, Duncan. Nah, fuck, this album doesn't get a goddamn pass either. What the fuck? What the actual fucking fuck are you doing charging people all that money on Kickstarter to get a real drummer to record it and then edit the fuck out of it so bad. I get presentation is in it because Fear Factory have always been sort of that, like you said, half machine, half, human mashup, and that kind of sells it. And just like with Static X, they did the exact same goddamn thing. They recorded a live drummer and edited the fuck of it. Nine Inch Nails, who you and I both loved to death, and we'll bend over for that dude. He does the exact same thing on all of his albums. So we can't come out and say, well, Fear Factory, but that's what the issue I've got is why they got a drummer to record all that and then edit it when they could have gotten the drummer to write all that and just do it with the fucking computer. Then you've got the mixer too, and you don't have to charge people on fucking Kickstarter. I don't know how much it was, but it wasn't a small amount because they had to raise it for Kickstarter. I get that they were broke and all this stuff and they needed money for all the crap, and I get that, but it's just like, why did you go through all that effort? You could have just gotten that same drummer to sit down with a computer for a few days and go, here's your fucking album. You didn't have to go through the effort. That being said, the drums are amazingly played and really, really well written. And they had to have been because it's Fear Factory and they're one of those massive bands that need, world-class musicians to be writing their parts for them. So you couldn't just have Dino sat down at the computer. You needed a drummer, a really good one that was hopefully on other albums. I'm not really sure. I'm a big fan of Fear Factory. Almost said Fangoria. I don't know why.
Because I'm here.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks, dude. But I'm not really up on their history. Well, like with most bands, I don't know. I just love them and I just don't read into them because I don't give a fuck. I like the music or I don't, But yeah, aside from this thing with Burton, this is one of his best performances. It really is. It is definitely not Ascension of the My album was fucking horrible. What is he thinking? Maybe he just doesn't like Dino anymore. That's probably it. Anyway, the drums, I've got to get back to it. The drums, they're really well played, really well written, really well... Okay, I'm going to say really well edited because they're edited within an inch of their lives. And Andy Sneap is really good at doing that kind of stuff and making... But there is humanity in the playing, and I think that's why they did it. Because if you do it on a computer with Superior Drummer or Drums from Hell, whatever you want to use, you lose that. You can fake it to a degree, but there's always going to be that limit where it just isn't there, and people like me can tell. And there's going to be a whole bunch of people, especially in the metal community, because they're super invested in this stuff. They're going to be like, it's just not good enough. So that's why I think they did it. And I am super conflicted, if you couldn't tell, because on the one hand, Fear Factory, Static X, Nine Inch Nails, all those kinds of industrial metal bands, they all do this, and it's in the presentation. If you're saying I'm half machine, half man, I get it. That is the presentation. They've always done it since their first album. This is not a new thing. They've decided to do this album. You can't come out and say, oh, you're fucking just using a new production technique, aren't you? Because they've always done it. They did it before all the others, and it's part of their sound. But on the other hand, why did you get someone to... But then, like I said, it's like, why did you get someone to record it and then edit the crap out of it? But on the other hand, if you didn't do that, would it still sound as good?
No.
Because... editing all the symbols and stuff like that is really hard and almost impossible to make sound like a robot unless you go and remap them all in Superior Drummer or whatever program you're using. That I doubt they did, because some of the bell attacks were very natural, very, very natural, and they went with the riffs, and the riffs aren't super edited. Dino plays really, really tightly, and he has to, because he's been playing that tight since, what was it, when did they come out? 95 or something? I can't remember. Way back when. It
was their first album, so...
Yeah, exactly, right. So he's been playing that tight for that long. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's very minimal editing. I've seen him play Nam and stuff, and he is spot on. He is naturally just that fucking tight. So it's hard to say if there's too much fuckery aside from the drums and, of course, the electronics and keys and stuff, because it's probably MIDI patches and stuff like that. But and coming to that, I don't know. This album is definitely top 4. I agree with both of you. But the electronics are starting to sound a little bit dated. It's 2021. We've moved on from the goddamn Roland JX6 or whatever it's called, Juno 6.
Oh, I love the Juno. Don't mock the Juno on this recording, you motherfucker.
I have a hardware Juno over there that I will show you one day, and it sounds amazing, and I love it. Just saying, there are some sounds that come out of the Juno you can make work in a brand new Prodigy album that will not sound as dated as this. Again, that being said, that's Fear Factory's thing. They do it super well, and it really works for them because it works with Burton's voice, which works with Gino's guitars, which works with the heavily edited drums. It all comes together and makes a fantastic Fear Factory album. There's a few filler songs I could have done without, so I'm kind of leaning more towards this maybe could have been a longer EP, 7 or 8 songs, because by the end of it I was like, okay, there were definitely some fillers on here. The last song the last song I think we could have done without, because Monolith had a really good ending, and that was like, okay, that's the end of the album. And then this last song came and I was like, but you could have cut it short there, or maybe just reordered it and have that song at the end instead of the other one. I don't know,
but the song's called The End of the Line, so it has to be at the end, Kyle.
I know. Yeah, I know. I get the logic. I'm just questioning it. And fuel-injected suicide machine is like fucking Christmas Day in the Fear Factory house.
Oh God,
it?
yeah.
Have you heard that? Jesus, it's like, it's happy, it's great, and it's got bells going off, and Bert and Sybella singing in a major key, and I'm like, oh, I get it. Fuel-injected suicide machine. Yeah. All right.
Fuel-injected suicide machine is literally what happens when you have a thesaurus in front of you. Like for a name of a song of a thesaurus, you're just flipping through pages. It is the most Fear Factory name for a song in the history of Fear Factory names for songs. You know what I mean? It is like the epitome. Fuel-injected suicide machine.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Maybe it was a callback to that band, Exodus song from one of their albums in the mid-2000s or something called Shovel-Headed Kill Machine.
Yeah. We are literally just
that.
you're just like picking words now. It's like the approach to naming songs becomes fucking Kevin Spacey and fucking The Usual Suspects picking things off the board at the back. just have a song called
This song is called
Kobayashi.
Deck of Cards Dildo. All right, great. You have no idea what I'm looking at, and I'm very happy. No, this was surprisingly good, though. I had low expectations for this because, like you said, the whole history of Fear Factory was being brought up, and there was lawsuits, and Burton left and went and did some utter shit. Burton, if you're listening, fucking stop. Go back to Fear Factory, you moron. It's fucking wrong, because it's fucking wrong. Ascension of the Watchers is some of the worst drivel I've ever heard in my life. Yeah. What the fuck are you thinking? This is your best vocal performance I've ever heard, bar a few songs from some very famous albums. I'm not going to say which one's the best one because I'll get shot. It's this one. No.
Yeah. Do you not think? But this is what I'm saying. Like, sometimes, this is why I'm skeptical about the continuation of this band. Like, sometimes, a particular vocalist works. Like, his best performances are brought out by the music played by. It's like Axl Rose performs at his best when Slash is playing guitar. That's just a known quantity, right? Like Dino Kazars and Burton C. Bell are Fear Factory. That's it. Like, if you bring anyone else in there, I don't even I'm with you, Dave. I think even if they went down a different tact and got a different singer, like, the comparison is always going to be there to Burton C. Bell, and it's never going to be as good as Burton C. Bell, even if the singer's better.
They'd have to make it someone so. Yeah. They'd have to make it someone so distinct with such a unique voice that it could not be compared. Yeah. Like Dio and Ozzy in Sabbath. They were so parametrically fucking different from each other, they couldn't be compared. It would have to be like, he said he's open to having a lady vocalist. I'm all for that. I think that would work quite well.
I think because the operatics it would be so stuff like that,
ridiculously different. Yeah,
I think that would at least be a move.
There'd be no comparison.
Yeah, it'd be a move in the right direction. I think for a band like Fear Factory to go off in a different tack to do that. You've had a great run, 10 fucking albums. You went out with arguably one of your best album in a decade and a half, easily. Then, at this stage, let it get your tour, get it behind you, and then go off and do something else rather than trade off a name, which I don't know. I get really pissy about stuff like this. You remember I was the same with the Static X album when I was like that. Just call yourself something else. Not fucking have a zombie-faced fucking Wayne Static, which is, I still think is one of the most tactless things a band has ever fucking done with a dead singer. They may as well just put up like a skeleton hung up on a fucking like a set of strings and fucking moved them like this. It's the same idea. I think like bands are, you know, there are key members to bands that like, when that key member isn't there anymore, just change your name. If you've got fans, people will follow you. People are not only wanting to listen to you if you're called Fear Factory. So,
they could call it Fear Dino.
Fear. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that okay. That. Right, Dave, bring us in before this goes Gojira live.
Let's wrap this up.
Dave's like, no, stop, please. I've heard too much. If I have to hear the words "programmed fucking drums" again, I'm gonna quit Metal Epidemic.
I noticed neither one of you's mentioned anything about those fucking plastic sounding toms.
You know what? I kind of agree. They did sound plastic, but they sound about as plastic as the rest of it. So I'm like, they probably weren't replaced because they put the effort in to record it live. But they definitely were fucked with. They're all exactly at the same time.
Everything you say right now until the next time you moan about something, and I'm going to throw this back at you.
Well, that's what I was saying about presentation is the key. They've been doing this since '92. They're saying they're half machine, half human. I get fucking pissed off when a band comes in and says, "We are 5 dudes who are not machines. Here's our album," and they've recorded it half time aligned it, pitched it, replaced all the drums. And it's just like, I'm just listening to some dude on a computer playing shit that you've done.
But like, for all you know, like all these debuts, for all you know, that's the sound the band want to have. So if we're saying it's fine because Fear Factory want to have that sound, it should be fine for everyone else.
Yeah, it should be if they present it that way. Not saying we are 5
bring
dudes
this
in a
in.
room.
He's never going to break. He's never going to break.
Nope, never.
Okay, gentlemen.
Computers ruin music. Fuck off.
So, finally, ratings for the new Fear Factory album. Yeah, as I said, I really liked this. I wasn't expecting a huge deal from it after the first couple of singles. It hit me on first listen. Taking all the other shit aside, all the baggage, all the backstory, just slide that to one side. Talking about this album, not what's happening next, who the next vocalist is. What do I think of this album? I think it's one of their best. I said top 4, might be top 3. It's a 4.5 from me. Duncan.
It's not top 3. You're fucking high right now. I don't know what's in that bottle, but you need to put it down, put the fucking lid back on it, and take a step away from your mic. I'm conflicted. Like, I'm somewhere between a 3.5 and a 4. If I'm honest. I like you can see like just take the album in isolation and all the rest. I can't do that, right? There's too much shit going on, too many questions and not enough answers.
Well, that's what we're reviewing. We're reviewing the album.
But listen, if the guy who wrote the album was an absolute fucking arsehole belly end to fucking, you know, I don't know, spat in the face of someone, I'm going to take that into my review. I'm not just going to review it as is. I think there's questions that need answers.
Well, let's not get into that because we've reviewed albums in the past with people in the bands who have done suspect things. So. Yes,
I don't know. I don't know. It's top. It's top. If I'm top 4, maybe. But then, like I say, I don't know. 3.5. Yeah, stick him with. Fuck him.
Excellent, Kyle.
My reasoning is I really liked it and I think it's one of their best, so 4.5.
Nice, excellent. This one drops on June 18th on Nuclear Blast Records. If you want to check out the band, facebook.com/Fear Factory. Again, I'll put links in the description below to their band Facebook and any pre-orders for the album. Let us know what you think. Obviously, a lot of debate on this one, so let us know what you think. Did you like the album? Did you like the singles? Stick some comments in below. Happy to hear them. That is the review. Thanks for sticking with us on this one, and we'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.